Hello, I'm Mario DiBernardo, and I'm going to be showing you guys how to change a liquid into a solid like this, and then a solid into a gas. And then we're going to be doing that back again, from a gas into a solid, back into a liquid. So first off, we're going to start with the liquid. Now, this is what the liquid looks like if you had a glass of water. This is what the liquid would look like. It wouldn't have a form like a solid would have. We'll get to that later, why it's like that. But anyway, they can bounce all over the place. They can move around. Yeah. So, and then there's a solid. Now, a solid is when liquid turns into a solid when it gets very cold. So, we're basically removing the heat from the liquid. It gets very cold, which turns in, and so basically, the liquids are bouncing around, like all the molecules, as you can see inside here. They're all bouncing around, right? When cold is added to it, it turns into a solid. So when it's a solid, they freeze and they stop vibrating. Now they're vibrating a little bit when they're a solid, just a tiny bit. But when they're a liquid, they're moving a little bit more. And then when it's a gas, they're moving all around. And we'll get to that later. So when a liquid turns into a solid, we call that freezing. When a liquid turns into a solid, it's called freezing. So now we have a solid. Now let's say, okay, I want to turn it back into a liquid. Well, we're going to turn it back into a liquid by melting it. We're going to call this melting. And once we melt it, the vibrations move a little bit more, and they move a little bit more, and they vibrate, and they vibrate, and they vibrate, until they break out of formation and turn into a liquid. Now this would be called melting. That's the word. Melting. Okay, now we have our liquid back to normal. Now it's not a solid anymore, it's a liquid. Now, let's say we want to turn this liquid back into a gas. We want to turn it into a gas. We want to make it a gas. So what we're going to do is we're going to add heat. So basically, imagine this line. There's a big line right here. And when we add heat, sorry for the terrible handwriting, that's just how I am. But when we add heat, the vibration gets bigger and bigger. See over here, there's very little vibration. Then once we add heat, once it melts, more vibration. And then once we add more heat, there's even more vibration, which turns into a gas. As you can see, gas has literally no formation. They're free. They're no formation. So anyway, once we add heat to the liquid, it turns into a gas. And what we're going to call that is vaporization. And vaporization is when a liquid turns into a gas using heat. For some of you that don't know what gas is, gas in a water form, in a liquid form, is like when you see clouds, fog, steam from a pot. If anybody at home has a humidifier, this is what the molecules of gas is. That's what it looks like. A fun fact about gas is gas can move literally wherever it wants. If it's not contained, it can go wherever it wants. Gas can go wherever it wants. So that's pretty cool about gas. Okay, so now we turned our solid into a liquid and our liquid into a gas. Now I want to do vice versa. I want to turn the gas into a liquid and then the liquid into a solid. So this is how we're going to do it. So what we want to do to the gas is we want to basically suck the heat out of it. We want to cool the gas down. Once the gas is cooled down, it can then turn back into a liquid. We are going to call this condensation. Condensation is the word for turning a gas into a liquid. Okay, so now we have our liquid. We turned the gas into a liquid now. Now the liquid needs to be turned back into a solid. We already talked about this, but I'll talk about it again. When a liquid turns into a solid, we add cool. We cool it down. So basically, we freeze it. You could put a cup of water in your freezer to freeze it. So if you had a cup of water, you would put it in the freezer, and then the liquids would be jumping around, the liquid molecules would be jumping around, and then the liquid would start to slowly stop jumping around. The molecules would stop jumping around because it's getting cooler and cooler until they turn into a solid. And a solid is where they have all the formation, and they're all, like, it's almost like they're in uniform. It's like attendance spots in PE. That's a solid. A liquid is free play, and then a gas is where it's just free-for-all pickleball or free-for-all sports, like ultimate frisbee, for example. So that about wraps my video up. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will probably be regretting it right about now. But before I leave, I just want to clarify that once you have a solid, you can turn that into a gas. By that, you would have to add heat. Once you have a solid, you add heat to get it a liquid, and then you add even more heat to get it into a gas. Now to get the gas back down, you cool it out. You cool it down. So now that wraps up my video. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed.